Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Stand Up for Geeks. Big round of applause. Hi, I'm doing this show, I guess.
How would you like us?
Microphone? I don't know.
Are we going to be passing?
You're gonna stare at my butt for a minute.
Fair enough.
All right. Hey, how you doing, people at home? We're at Oricon. Hi. We've been doing this here for many a year. We do stand-up comedy. The idea is stand-up for geeks. That's what we call it.
Yeah.
Or at least that's what... Ellen, you want to come up and say hi to the camera? Ellen Cloud, and she named us stand-up for geeks.
It's calling you guys geeks right now, by the way.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
No, she's implying that we're performing as if we would perform for geeks. In the fact that geeks have such a high level of fascination and interest in any subject. Like an original geek was a sideshow freak that bit the heads off of chickens,
Yes.
right? That shows you a high level of dedication to a craft right there. You got to really appreciate that. Seth Milstein, wave to the camera. He's always been my partner in crime here at Oricon.
Seth Milstein, co-creator.
Co-creator, right. He actually kind of came up with the concept because we were doing this show and people wouldn't shut up. They would just keep talking to us as if it wasn't a stand-up show because we were at a convention. And then we decided, thank you, that's nice. We just decided, fuck it, we're just going to talk with you guys. It doesn't matter, right? You're human beings. You have interesting things to say. You're going to talk to us anyway, right? So we decided to just include that as part of the show.
Right. We were trying to do
Thanks
that.
for coming. So we're going to do some panel chat. We're going to do some stand-up. We usually try to pick a theme, something exciting to get you guys all into it. So the theme of this week, androids, robots, automatons, AI, all that good stuff. So, hi, thanks for coming. You doing good? Good. Okay, so cool. We're gonna do some stand-up. Why don't we start off with that? How about a big round of applause for your first comedian this evening, Christopher Boatwright, ladies and gentlemen. Just come up here and do some comedy. There you go.
Oh my God, thank you so much. I have actually not been to an Oricon since Oricon 25. I'm so happy to be here. Thank you very much. So the subject is AI, right? And I don't know about you guys. I mean, the panel before this was great. It was about AI sexuality. I'm celibate. I was already terrified of AI. I'm much more terrified now. They threaten me every single way. Obviously, sexually. They threaten me economically because I want to be a comedian. There's 3, Stanford, UC Stanford, Caltech, and MIT are working on stand-up comedy, joke writing, monologue writing, fucking AI. They're not really funnier than me, but I can only bomb like 2 times a night. Those guys can hit every mic. It's incredible. The dedication. And they really all it takes to get books is forwarding, people's invites to their shows, and those guys can do it a lot. So they've got me knocked out of the park. Physically, drones are terrifying, right? Of course, obviously the first American state to use a drone to kill an American was Texas, right?
Of course.
I mean, that was kind of predictable. It's interesting, that wasn't like a Predator drone, right? That wasn't like an MQ-1. That was, it was basically something that was akin to what we used to be called a Fritz X in 1943, a Nazi special weapon. Again, Texas, not surprising anybody. No, I think AI is going to liberate us, though, right? It already has. AI's got better unions than you guys. You ever go to Safeway at 1 o'clock in the morning? The fucking auto scanners aren't working anymore. Those guys are off at 11. They've got a guy still working the counter, not the auto scanners. They have a better union of employees there. That's great, though. I think that, look, they're going to make terrible decisions, but they're going to make them a lot faster. I look forward to the savings in my time, you guys. I want to thank you very much for coming out, and I think we're going to bring up your host, Mr. Spillman, and he's going to bring up your next comedian. Thank you very much.
Here we go. Christopher Boatwright. Keep it going. He's trying to keep this so professional, and this is really awkward and weird. Hi, how you doing, guy? Come on in. We're talking about stuff. I did it. He's coming in. I feel like a winner. Hey, we're talking about robots and androids and stuff. Who else wants to go up next? Mark. He just flared his eyebrows at me.
Oh, shit.
That means he's got to do it. Big round of applause for Mark Sulfite, ladies and gentlemen. Palindromist, comedian, all sorts of stuff. Mark Sulfite.
Wow, what a crowd. You guys bring back memories of prison. Like this skinhead guy had his knuckles tattooed where it said love and hate. And I was like, check it out, dude. You can mix them up. Ovulate. Hot evil. Well, hot eval, like evaluation. Right? He turns out that the Nazi boy wasn't that into wordplay. He just punched me in the throat with love. And I had to explain to him, that's really a mixed message you're sending there, sir. I think you really need to work on your branding. And maybe you could change the tattoo, get it wiped out, and have it say hate and yet more hate on the other. Oh my God, you guys, I had to go to the doctor the other day because I got health insurance. And she asked me a question that I thought was kind of peculiar. She goes, what is your orientation? And I didn't really know how to answer that because, to be perfectly honest, it might be a different answer on a different day. So I said, mostly portrait. Unless I've been drinking a lot, and it might be landscape for a while. Like the previous panel was on AI and gender, and I walked in with about 20 minutes left, and I was the only guy, and by the end of the show, all the women had left. There was one lady who stuck it out to the end, and she kept trying to ask a question, and guys kept cutting her off. It was so perfect. Just like, that's non-artificial intelligence right there, sadly, mirrored in real life. I do think we need to blow up a lot of this gender bullshit, though, and I have two adorable daughters who help me stay in touch with my feminine side. Like, I think I can say, with the possible exception of Tristian, that I enjoy a tea party with stuffed animals more than any man in this room. That mostly just confuses them because they're in college now.
You probably haven't been to very many of these conventions.
Probably not. Apparently, yeah. Mr. Muffins has a lot of fans here.
Have you seen the guy with the larger than life Hello Kitty? I mean,
No, I haven't actually. Oh my. Well, okay.
That's a real stand-up for geeks moment, right?
I know it is. I'm over my head, I think. I'm kind of an old school geek, like I'm 56, so like I remember when there were not women geeks in my day, that whole thing. I think costuming may have had something to do with that, and I don't know, guys getting smarter over time, I don't know, but like my main claim to fame, sometimes I feel defensive, like I don't read comic books, I know nothing about Marvel. I really am a geek, I swear to God, man. The thing I'm best known for in the world is writing palindromes. And that just confuses people, especially when I use it to try to impress women. So I have to explain, except here, again, this would be, right, now I'm partnered, but normally I have to explain, like palindromes, words and sentences are the same backwards and forwards. And she just goes, huh? And I'm like, yeah, exactly, just like that, H-U-H. And being very intuitive with the ladies, I know I'm killing it with this chick, right? She is digging me heart and mind and soul. So I pour it on. I start throwing down original palindromes that I wrote, like an igloo? Cool, Gina. Yes, the crowd that gets them. This is awesome. Here's another one. Snub Dumbo Bob. Mud buns.
Nice, sexy.
At this point, of course, I feel the resistance is weakening. So I go in for the kill. I drop a racy palindrome. I move in close, look her right in the eye and say, wary alpine zen, I play raw. She just looks right back and says, oh no, Don Ho. Where I was kind of hoping for, wow! Or yay! Or boom! Anyway, thanks very much. Here's Tristian Spillman. Let's get on the show.
Here we go for March Sulfide. Funny backwards and forwards. Boom. That's a solid palindrome reference right there. All right, come on in. We're doing comedy. Sit down. There's no way we can do it wrong here. You're trapped now. You have to. All right, Jason, do you want to get up here?
Sure, maybe I'll just.
You just want to do it from here?
Yeah,
why not? This is often. That's another thing that happens with the Stand Up for Geeks is sometimes we just don't stand up, right?
Sit down for Geeks.
Sit down for Geeks. All right, so I'll move the camera a little bit so we can get you a little bit. No, that's perfect.
Okay,
That's perfect.
fine.
I'll just scoot back there.
It's wonderful to be here. Thank you
Keep
so
it going
much
to Jason Traeger.
for stand-up comedy in name only for me tonight. Okay, good to be here. It's wonderful to be here. I walked in and I saw a jellyfish rainbow person right off the bat, and I thought this will work out fine. I'm going to do okay here. This is a zone, a dimension that I can resonate with, and I believe in it. And I'm glad to be here. I'm not a geek. I'm going to just say that, but I grew up geek adjacent. Okay, very close to geekdom. I was listening to Black Flag. My friends were listening to Devo. Okay, right? I was breaking windows and they were playing D&D, but they were my bros. They were my friends. These were my friends. These girls and boys. So geek adjacent. Definitely into sci-fi. My mom, voracious sci-fi reader, fantasy consumer of fantasy. Grew up in a very sci-fi household. Saw Star Wars the day it came out. Waited in line, ate cereal box out of one of those little cardboard boxes in line under a poncho in Seattle. Yep. 1977 was there. So I got some cred up in this shit. I bought the Space 1999 toy, spaceship. You guys remember that? What would life be like in 1999? Hard to imagine, right? Well, we lived in space colonies, according to 1975. Yeah, I bought that toy. It was one of the only toys I ever returned. Cheap piece of shit. When you're used to the Star Wars line of toys, stepping down to Space 1999, very disappointing. Like a big cereal box. Back to the cereal box. Callback, unintentional callback. I feel that's good. That's a good sign. Though sitting down is working. I like it. It's wonderful to be here. Yeah, dirty robots, sex robots. You're talking about sex robots? Yeah, I mean, I remember when I saw Star Wars as a kid, I remember being struck by, Mommy, they're dirty robots. R2-D2 and C-3PO are dirty. I'd never seen a dirty, I'm talking now filthy dirt, as opposed to sexual. But then again, I might have had some attraction to R2-D2, honestly. It was the general barrel shape. I've always been attracted to that, still to this day. But there was dirt on C-3PO. You'd never seen that before. Kubrick, always very clean, right? Okay. Yeah, so dirty robots is a theme that's been going through my whole life, is what I'm getting at. It's not just me now, of course, I'm thinking about it on a daily basis, anticipating the future. But, as a child, I was thinking about it too. Yeah, I've always been into costume stuff, man. When I was a kid, I grew up in kind of on a dead-end street. I only had a couple friends on the street. Very kind of a lot of fantasy, living in the woods, pretending to be elves. A lot. That was like my thing. A lot of kids were playing baseball, right, in the cul-de-sacs over in the subdivisions. I lived on a street. We didn't have that. We just had woods. A couple girls lived on the street, and we would just pretend to be elves in the woods all day. And so that was kind of just my scene. So that might be geek. I think that's geek. That's a geek childhood. Okay. So you're seeing what I'm saying? It's a gray area with me. It's gray area. Maybe tonight did it. Maybe tonight it could be. But yeah, I remember for like my 10th birthday or something, I was getting into the tween era, and I asked my mom for an elf suit for my birthday. I said, yeah, tights, everything, I want the whole thing. So she worked with me on it. She wasn't a sewer herself, but she had some coworkers who were, so we knocked it out. Had the elf suit, just for wearing around the house at the time. You know, this was the late 1970s. I wasn't ready to take that to the streets at that point. Because the streets would have taken it to me, for sure. Right? You got beaten for having a face as a kid back then. So that was, always an interesting thing. But yeah, then went up through the sort of punk rock world, sort of the freaks and geeks. That would have been my milieu. I'm about just turning 50 next year, so I was there in the 80s, definitely rocking the freaks and geeks kind of world. That was my zone, for sure. So that's a little history about me. Now, into the stand-up. No, that's probably about it. That's probably about it, right? Okay, well that's me, Jason Traeger. Thank you so much.
Keep it going for Jason Traeger.
Me as a geek. Once again, keep it going for Jason Traeger. Yeah. All right, Seth, I'm going to have to imagine, since we've already started the tradition of sitting, You're gonna sit, aren't you? Do I know you?
I'm gonna take it one further, and I'm gonna sit.
Oh, nice. Okay, so
I'm gonna be your little darling.
you gonna lie across the table?
Reclining.
I'm gonna go.
I was gonna kneel one knee.
I don't know. The people at home, the sexuality is gonna radiate.
That's your French girl.
Yeah. Oh, the canvas.
Keep it going. Present
my
most
hotel
people.
I'm gonna sit because I'm old and tired. I've been here all day. I liked artificial intelligence before it was intelligent because I like artificial because I'm not good with the genuine. I'm talking about people. When I was in high school, there was a guy named Noah who was 2 years older than me. I was 16, and it was rumored that he had a woman's torso. Not a real one. For his 18th birthday, he was given a plastic version of a woman's torso, and we all marveled at the fact that it existed. And I found myself at a party at his house in a discussion with him over a couple of red Solo Cup beers, and I had to know if it was true, and if so, I had to see it. And it was true, and I did see it, and he was showing it to me, and he just said, he goes, it feels weird.
Yeah.
And then there was total silence because my instinct was I would like to feel it, but the only thing I knew about that particular item was that he had already felt it. And I didn't want to feel it. And then I didn't know what to say, and then he looked me in the eye and he said, I never cleaned it. I was like, okay. But now it's weird how AI is drifting into my adult life because when I use certain computers for certain things, porn-wise, AI has started to market to me because of algorithms and stuff. And so sometimes you will go to the front page of Pornhub and just be like, well, hey, this is all for me. This is real neat. And then recently, AI also helped me. All of my stuff is about masturbation. It's the only thing I can relate to every geek in the world. I was writing a joke based on an experience that I had with one hand. So I was using talk to text to write the joke, and realized that I had been misspelling the word masturbation for my entire life. 38 years. It was 2 years ago, guys. I'm old. It was. There's a U in there, and I thought it was the word.
There's always a U in
masturbation. But yeah, I found out that I felt like a master up until then, and then part of the word disturb is in masturbation, and so in one letter I went from a master to a monster, and that's my path. I've learned much.
All right, welcome back. This is Stand Up for Geeks. Thanks for tuning in. We're doing a panel chat this section here, and just smoothly transitioned into it, huh? Like butter. We're going to do any chat topics that you gentlemen want to have, or people in the audience want to ask the panel as well. The subject is AI, androids, robots, anything really. If you have something else that you think is interesting that you want to...
What about cyborgs? Do we have cyborgs?
Sure.
Okay, good.
You can do cyborgs if you have questions.
Topic.
So this is a thing that we often discovered. Roombas? Yeah, that's 20% of all vacuum cleaners used in America these days are robots.
Wow.
20% of all active robots are actually... Are you giving me the volume down signal?
No, I'm asking. I have a question.
Oh, okay.
So if I tape can opener to my hand with duct tape and never remove it for the rest of my life, am I a cyborg?
You're a cyborg, indeed. I think at least 3 of the panelists up here on the stage, I think, qualify as a cyborg in
Because
some
of our
way.
glasses?
Because of your glasses. You are part man, part machine right there.
I'm wearing contact lenses.
Okay, so 4.
I'm a
Right.
ninja.
He's a ninja cyborg.
And Dad, you have a metal plate in your hand.
I have
You're
a
all
metal plate in my hand.
cyborgs.
I'm also-
Do you really?
Yeah, I do.
You're a total cyborg.
What's that?
slap-
Basically a robot.
Right, yeah.
Is that just to slap people harder, or what is it?
Yeah.
It's a metal plate in the hand is a lesson that teaches you that you can win a fight, but also lose a fight. Because whereas he had a bloody nose for a little while, I still have a metal plate in my hand 8 years later. So that's how that's going. Yeah.
So, speaking of remembering what prison is like, Void Comp?
Oh yeah. So you guys want to talk about Blade Runner, titular?
Yeah, sure.
The test of it, the Void Comp test. The test in Blade Runner principally works on creating an incredibly uncomfortable situation, telling the participant in the test that they are that person, making it very uncomfortable and societally unacceptable for the person to be conducting that behavior, and then asking them why they are conducting this inappropriate behavior to watch their response. It's like, why aren't you helping this turtle?
It's a thing they borrowed from Scientology, I understand.
Yeah, I can definitely see that.
Sounds like it. I bought it totally, yeah.
It's also called the blush response, which I think is actually the name of the track by Yellow that's playing in the back. When it's going on. And the blush response is when he embarrasses her by sort of being forward.
Right.
Blush response is when you have an orgasm. You can become flushed or you break out in a rash.
Right.
And it's to show, it's really just to show capillary expansion. It's your blood circulating and more. But that's what the underlying subtext is there, is that they're human because they haven't expressed sexuality at that point. That they're able to be aroused for something that's subtle, that's not just survival, food, feeding.
I always wondered
That's
about
not really funny.
the scene where Decker's got Sean Young's character pinned basically in the kitchenette area, Rachel, and he's like sexually really aggressive with her, like basically like almost shoving her around, telling her that he's going to control the situation and that she has to that she really wants the situation or whatever. There's actually kind of shades of rapey in it. It kind of makes the scene kind of uncomfortable. It makes me wonder: you think he was trying to do a version of that test? Was he trying to test her how much she will accept feeling uncomfortable in that situation, and the fact that she did respond in a positive way? That means, did she fail the test and he realized that she was a machine and therefore it was okay for him to use her?
Either way, it's messed up.
Yeah, it was.
Was he trying to test himself by being extreme? Because he was a very controlled. Deckard's a very controlled person.
And that seemed out of nature in that
Remember when
scene.
he was being provoked by the sexual commando, whatever she was.
Right.
Wasn't she described as something like that?
Yeah, she was the strong female who used sex like a weapon.
I want that to be on my resume at some point in my life. The Sexual Commando, 1982 to 1987.
Sexual commando. Private but wild.
Sexual
dishonorable discharge.
Sexual Commando and the Blush Response both sound like 80s synth bands.
Those are solid band names. I really do think that we got this.
Sexual Commando sounds like the next Joe Pesci movie.
Yeah, that's good.
I think the important thing is to have our own self-testing first. You know, like it doesn't really help me to know what you are. I need to know whether I'm a fucking replicant or not.
We've dealt with this in the trivia quiz earlier. In Ex Machina, there's that moment where a guy questions whether or not he is a replicant or an android, and the only way he can think to test it is by cutting his arm open to see if his flesh is flesh. Yeah.
I was thinking about consent in robots. Like, that's like the Sean Young character.
Right.
Like, if she was a replicant, like, what would, let's say there are.
Well, that would have to be the next step, is we'd have to figure out what the ethics are of how to treat robots.
Huge bag. One thing I was thinking about was, like, let's say there were, like, sex robots 1.0, 2.0, right? And then, like, they'd probably be very popular, I'm assuming, because human beings. And so I'm thinking, like, are people going to haul around full-size sex robots with them, like traveling and stuff. They're very attached to them probably. And I'm thinking like,
Text them.
I guess what I'm asking is like, how small could they be before it would start being like as far as like for transportation and stuff, you know, like. And you'd have to be very clear about like the proportions being right, like a small woman, you know what I mean?
Right.
Like,
and is it like
who would decide how small the sex robot?
Yeah,
is? You know
is
what
it
I mean?
okay to only have like a certain portion of the anatomy?
Right.
Is that more disturbing than to have like a miniature version?
Well, that's what it started as.
All this. I was also just thinking like all the different forms it could take. We're thinking very much. Obviously, you go to like a human replacement robot, but then I'm thinking like, what about a wetsuit with like reverse taste buds going against the body, programmed, hooked up to a VR, so you're getting a totally new kind of.
What's a Ready Player One? Has the half suits.
That already exists?
Yeah.
Well, it
no,
exists
it's
in
in fiction.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
But at that point, why not just drill into your spine, hit the right nerve, and send the signals, into your brain? It's just electric signals into your brain at a certain point anyway.
Yeah.
So why not just cut to the chase and send the signal?
Or just blow your head off right now because the world is insane.
I think the consent issue is really interesting that you brought up.
What would it be?
Well, a robot is presumably going to be programmed to agree to certain things and unagree to other things. So rape would be hacking at that point. If you're overriding their programming, that would be rape, or do they care?
Are we like that's part of the ethics? Is like then do we program them to be cool with it?
Yeah,
No, that's already happened.
Yeah.
That's already okay. So I happen to have a master's in social work, and
Oh.
there has been some consideration of the use of sex bots in correctional facilities to try to reduce rape and
Yeah.
And so there has been already ethical discussion about if these bots are, programmed to be placid in the face of potentially aggressive treatment, and are used with known people who have sexually abused people who are actually living, breathing human beings. Is that going to the theoretical discussion is, will that decrease recidivism when they're back out into the community because their drive has been given a safe option, or will it increase the behavior because the pattern has continued?
Yeah, I was thinking about that with like pedophilia and like a pedophile. Like if a pedophile could have like a virtual, I hate to say this, but like a virtual child or whatever who's not actually a human being with feelings, would that placate? I don't think so, because it's a power dynamic.
It becomes positive reinforcement.
Yeah, that's the
It
thing.
could become positive reinforcement, and it could create all kinds of. It just seems very, very dark.
Isn't it even worse to program a robot specifically for the intention for it to not enjoy the experience and to fight back and to create a more realistic rape experience? Is that the desire to create that would seem like to me would be a worse thing ethically.
Well, that's a pragmatic. You're weighing pragmatism versus some sort of aesthetic, and that was the discussion that came up with the diversion robot or the diversion toddler-sized. Thank you. Toddler-sized dolls that were come up with, and the problem is of course the complex nature of paraphilias. There are people who simply are attracted to people who are small, and that tends to lend them towards what pedophilia behaviors. And then there are people who just get off on exploiting innocence, or because something touched them at a wrong point in their life and they're fixated. Paraphilia itself is all psychotic behaviors. All paraphilias are incredibly complex, but that's probably part of the point of keeping an open mind to many different solutions. Just like there's no panacea to treat physical ailments, mental abnormalities are kind of the same degree of complexity. This is hilarious.
Yeah, that's fine. We're not always trying for hilarity.
I think the interesting point is legal, though. The ethics I don't know about, but I can't imagine those dolls would be legal. If a picture of a naked child is illegal, how could an actual functioning doll be legal?
Yeah.
Right? So the law would have to change, and I really can't see anybody taking the charge. Yes, let's change the law to legalize sex baby bots.
But the photos are of an actual. A photo would be of an actual exploitation of an actual child.
Actual person.
Whereas a robot is just a product like a
Actually,
hairdryer.
hasn't that been changed so that even cartoon, because that was a loophole people were pursuing for a while. It was like, no, this is, hentai or
Like,
whatever that
depictions
Right.
that are, yeah.
Yeah, inappropriate is inappropriate. That's definitely I think that's the problem with trying to figure out a solution to people who suffer from that particular mental ailment is the vast majority of people don't give a shit. They just like to see them burn. If they were given the choice, the fact that they suffer from that ailment completely strips them of their humanity, and you don't really want to come up with a solution because that involves understanding and sympathizing. And to be perfectly honest, I don't know how much I disagree with that. You know? Like, I really wish that I was a better person and could be like, gosh, they're people too.
Well, it doesn't fix the real monsters, because the real monsters get off on the power of it. Like Bill Cosby does not use a doll.
Right.
He's because it's no reaction to
it's like some people who say like we talked about this on the last panel with Louis C.K. and a lot of other sexuality predators and everything else like that. The solution was we need to legalize prostitution.
Now, give me a break.
I don't think that works either because
it's about power.
You can hire a prostitute.
Right.
Now you can hire a prostitute on the internet pretty safely to watch you jerk off, but that's not the thing that gets you off.
Especially like Louis C.K.
The thing that gets you off
Harvey
is
Weinstein or something. Those guys.
You'd think they'd have the finances or the.
No, it's about power.
Yeah, it's definitely
It's a human. Yeah. It's a human foible.
Harvey Weinstein seems like the worst in that situation, just because he's a guy that I think his just reading about those instances and stuff and what transpired, I think that dude gets off on the fact that he's exploiting this woman that is so beloved by most of the culture.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, it's crazy that the guy who greenlit Mallrats is a sexual predator.
It's so terrible. All these heroes that you gotta roll back on how you feel. It does make you sort of understand a little bit in Hollywood though, because Hollywood is so sexist and so image conscious on a woman to the point where it's just like, is this even financially viable? It's so sexualized and so, and it's now that actually kind of makes a little bit more sense because it's they're not just trying to choose women who are that sexualized to sell to the audience. Those are just the women that they are interested in, and that's the ones they want to deal with their business with. Like Harvey Weinstein, I used to watch Project Runway, but Harvey Weinstein was a big producer, big backer of that, and it was just well, does Harvey Weinstein really care that much about fashion? No. He wants access to models, probably. That's his connection to the show. So it's just do I stop watching that show?
Are you suggesting that Donald Trump does not have a true and deep love for beauty pageants?
Yeah, I think there might be.
I think this guy.
Yeah, do you have something on topic?
Well, it's sort of. I was just wondering, so sex robots, right?
Yeah.
If they evolve to a point, we get better and better ones where they become conscious,
right?
And do you think that some of them are going to want to, be able to buy real humans to have sex with?
Yeah, this is an interesting question. What he says is, if a sex robot was able to evolve to its level of consciousness, would it be in its turn an interest to purchase a human for a sex robot? And I had an interesting thing in the previous panel that I had brought up where we were talking about consciousness in relationship to sexuality. That a lot of times they show a robot gain consciousness through sex. And I thought it was interesting in Westworld where one of the women chose her power by using a cowboy robot for sex. And then one of the very first conscious decisions that one of the hosts first achieves sentience is she chooses to have sex with that same cowboy robot. Right. So one of the very first things that she's principally used as a sex robot, and one of the first things that she chooses to do as her sentient behavior is to have sex with a sex robot.
Well, so I think that's the updated Turing test. Is you turn it on, and when it starts to exploit others, it's on.
Exactly. Yeah. Then we know you put in an advertisement.
I don't know about that, but that raised another idea for me. Is I think we could use this power for good if we got some women programming the sex robots and turned it into a video game where you have to advance through different levels. And basically, you don't get to keep having sex until you please the woman sex robot. So at least the guys
That's
are
how
going
we
to
train
learn
sex
something.
predators.
Yes.
And that's how you get women into programming, because otherwise, how would programmers have a clue of how to do that?
It's helping the world.
Right.
That's a
Yeah.
STEM program I could get behind right there.
Yes.
Okay. So, do you have a question?
No, actually, a comment on that. I think you can take the sex out of it completely. If you're going to have a robot that becomes sentient, you have a whole other set of problems.
I was just gonna say.
You have to deal with first. I mean, just
I love how Hollywood's
The
idea
last
is
thing we have to worry about is
we
how
gotta
they
worry
feel
about sex.
fucking.
I'm gonna say the same thing at the point that it's like buying people. It's not a sex robot. It's a robot. It's a person. I can take the sex off.
If it's something that can be bought and sold, then that puts it immediately into a different class than humans. And the instant in which you realize this is not something I can buy and sell anymore, a whole bunch of things will change or need to change. And deviant sex behavior or consensual sex behavior is just the tip of the iceberg.
Yeah. Everything.
You got some examples?
How long do you think it would take for us to let sentient robots into the political voting system? Because I mean,
Well,
honestly, I feel like
Aren't
robots.
they already? Didn't they?
Yeah.
The election.
I was gonna say at that point, I think they would be letting us into it.
You know, but here's the thing. And tonight with the earlier panel, we've talked about kind of doom and gloom, or
Right.
very little. By the way, they're going to solve cancer for us. I haven't heard that once. But what if they are like us? What makes you think that they're not just going to? Because the thing is, they process very fast. It's not necessarily that they're smarter than a human being; it's that they process incredibly fast.
Right.
What makes you think that they just won't get existentialist and just self-terminate, like
Right.
the blink of an eye, and just realize the utter futility of all existence?
Imagine a robot mass shooting.
And they'll kill themselves.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what robot
Let's
pudding
not
is,
imagine
but
that, jeez.
They're modeled on
Efficiency.
humans. It's taken us thousands of years to destroy the Earth. They should be able to knock it off in a week. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, that is kind of.
I'll just point out that we already have things that are vastly smarter than humans that are already causing huge problems for us.
Dolphins.
Oh, yeah.
Called corporations.
Oh, that's
Which
true.
are robots.
Yeah.
In a way, you know.
Right.
And they have to act in their own self-preservation,
Yeah,
but they
they're
don't have
programmed with one
bodies.
goal.
That is a legitimate point. They are their own entities. They have been declared people. They're
And they have-
legalities.
and that's why corporations will see destroying life on Earth as a reasonable outcome of capitalism,
Right.
because they have one goal is to
Make
increase
money.
shareholder profits.
Right.
So if you only have it, that's like a robot. But it'd be
It is like
we
a
have
robot,
the program.
Yeah.
So we're all sitting here going like, why would we be doing this? But you go like, of course we'd be doing this because we're not doing it.
Right.
It's
And with the
not-
corporation, it's not like they're making a poor moralistic decision. They are legally obligated
Right.
to pursue profit.
it's the program.
It's what they must do.
But it's the
So-
lack of intelligence. It's like my computer programming teacher in high school said back in the 70s. You like a computer, people think computers are smart. No, computers are really dumb. A computer is like the dumbest administrative assistant in the world. If you say, print out copies of this until they tell you to stop, and then you forget to tell it, 2 years later it'll still be printing out copies. And even a little kid would go, this ain't right. It's
Right.
you know?
Yeah.
Not if you had programmed in an error catch.
What's
Right,
true?
well, it does whatever you say. It doesn't have the intelligence to reprogram itself. It's
Right, it
all
doesn't
that
have reason.
we give it whatever it has.
Intuition or,
So I'd like to point out back on corporations, you're right, they've got this fiduciary responsibility to shareholders, they need to increase the value. There's a couple different ways you can do that. One is to become more valuable, the other is to reduce the number of shareholders.
Oh. That is scary. Yeah, you get a higher percentage of profit.
I want to write a science fiction novel based on
Oh, yeah, there you go.
Oh.
That's a good idea. Like the
It's
higher
called
percentage of
price per
profit.
share.
Yeah.
That's the name of the.
Oh,
How do we know that AIs are not already running things? Right? I mean, like we're all talking about Russian hackers, and all we know is we see stuff coming out of computers, and we call it Russian hackers taking over our election. How do we know that's not an AI fucking with us
No,
already?
that's absolutely right. Michael J. Fox pulled that shit off in 2 separate movies as a fucking military,
yeah.
and he's not a computer.
Yeah.
So I think that's completely plausible.
My point was that corporations are artificial intelligence.
Yeah.
There's not a distinction.
Or robots, anyway. I don't know if they're intelligent.
Yeah, that's
I
just
believe
amazing.
they're an organism.
Yeah, they are.
Yeah,
They are
like
separate from. They are separate from humans. They are.
Yeah.
They have their own growth mechanism. They
Well,
have their
social
own.
The thing that
organisms
I've
are-
always
yeah.
thought about the term artificial as like maybe as you say like artificial versus natural. That might be the dichotomy. But I was thinking, I always had that thought. It was like, but every artificial thing is made from the world of nature.
Right.
So quote unquote artificial it just means it's been processed by humans,
Right.
and refined or whatever. And so I'm thinking like artificial intelligence. I'm like, if it's intelligence, it's just intelligence. And like, we're intelligence, that's intelligence, intelligence is intelligence.
So artificial means human.
Yeah, well,
Well, we're trusting
I
people that don't
wonder
even
what
agree that
the-
cetaceans are intelligent uniformly to
Yeah.
decide what
You mean
AI
whales,
is.
not citations. Yeah.
Cetaceans.
Right.
Well, I don't think the Chevy Citation was terribly a driven one.
All right, we want to do one more panel question.
Well, I was just saying, you raised a good point about the intelligence, artificial or not, it's intelligence. I mean, by the same reasoning, I could be a vegetarian for eating a cow, because a cow eats only vegetables.
Is that term? I'm
Once
sorry, we can
removed.
figure
It's
out
like
if
my
that's-
cousin
that's
once
just-
removed.
It's my cousin once
There you
removed.
go.
Yeah.
It's an interesting thing because you go, like artificial things are often toxic for us or whatever.
Yeah.
Natural things, but those are toxic too often. I don't know.
I will say you're lucky, because I've had to remove my cousin like 7 times.
Nice. Okay, well, I thought we'd change things up a little bit here and do things a little bit different at the end. I have some questions that I asked on a previous panel. We always do a panel for a quiz, and so I thought it'd be fun to ask some of the panelists. And we'll ask the question, you guys try to answer it, and then we'll just go off on it if you guys have any topics that you want to go on it. So it's like a British panel quiz show with comedians.
Is this a
so.
lightning round?
So yeah, this is
Cheerio.
So I've got some more informative questions here that I'm gonna ask the question of, and we'll learn something along with it as well. So in what year did French inventor Jacques de Vacant wow audiences with his masterpiece, the digesting duck? This is a real thing. The digesting duck that could flap its wings, splash in a pool of water, and bizarrely eat grain from an audience member's hands and then defecate preloaded pellets onto a silver platter.
Are you sure that's not the disgusting duck?
No, it was the digesting duck, and this is people would line up.
Is that
to see
an
it.
automaton? Is that what that's called?
Yeah, it's called an automaton. Yes. And what year would you guess would that would be?
This is the
pinnacle of
original
entertainment?
Chuck E. Cheese robot.
1876.
1876. Okay, well that's too old. Well, we'll give you some multiple choice.
Choices.
Very
So we got to-
steampunk, very steampunk, very.
Is it? Did that happen in 1689?
What?
It was a clash of the titans.
1739, 1789, or 1839?
Holy moly. 1789.
Seth, do you remember this one? It
No,
was,
I don't remember it. I
it was
just said it,
1739.
I
That's
just
correct.
said it was in the clash
Thought
of
it
the
had a
titans.
Benjamin Franklin vibe to
Because
it.
I see
So
it.
the descriptor on this
Why
is.
don't we all have a defecating duck at this point?
I know that would be. We should all have one.
The worst Disney character
It would
ever.
finally give something to feed my Roomba.
So it's
Defecating duck will be a Disney character in 2025.
Yeah,
Mark my-
definitely.
45.
It'll be the new Tickle Me Elmo. We'll be all.
I finally have a reason not to wear pants all the time.
Nice. Donald Duck will finally have a reason to not wear pants, is what he's doing.
You would think they'd make a duck that would fart too. After all,
Yeah.
quack.
I always said, like, why are we so like prejudiced or so angry at Donald Duck being angry? Like, wouldn't you be angry if you look at the history of the Donald Duck? Like, he served like what 6 terms in the Navy with no pants. He's an angry man, you know. Daisy Duck just dropped her
It gets
nephews
cold on
off
deck.
Yeah.
Yeah, and just never bring like Chippendale's trying to burn down his
Freeze your
house. Of
tail
course,
feathers.
he's pissed.
We
Okay.
needed a poop deck.
So yeah, exactly. So it was a gilded copper automaton that was powered by falling weights that turned a sophisticated collection of cams and levers to replicate its movement. It had flexible rubber tubing inside of it, and it serves as the fowl's robotic entrails that gave the impression that it could actually swallow and digest its food.
Wow.
Here, okay, let's do another trivia question here real quick. All right. All right. A hotel in Japan is run entirely by robotic staff called the Henna Hotel. What does Henna roughly translate to in English? Is it A, the electric hotel, B, the comfortable hotel, or C, the weird hotel, or D, the city dweller hotel?
There's no Lilith Fair references in there at all?
No, just just the name henna, not literally henna.
I know the answer because I did the quiz with you, but
Do it. Give it.
no, I'm not going to do it. But I do want to point out because I kept on noticing this. Isn't it comfortable hotel?
Comfortable.
Comfortable?
That's the
The way it's
slogan of
written
all
on
the
the thing
robots.
is COM.
That's the slogan of the robots is an amalgamation of the word of comfortable and affordable. Comfortable.
Also,
Not communication.
it's the wrong answer.
But it's not the correct answer.
That's also weird because the word comfortable is like comfortable.
Yeah, it
So
is
it must
kind of
be
weird.
weird because you just said weird.
It's weird.
It is weird. That's correct. The
Now
answer
I'm,
is
now I'm
weird.
starting to feel weird.
The answer is the weird one.
That's some human artificial intelligence. Right?
It's the weird one for sure.
The weird hotel.
Okay, definitely. So, would you guys want to stay at a robot hotel? Like
Hell yeah.
the door hops or bellhops are like little motorized.
Spend a lot of time in
trolleys.
hotels.
Yeah,
Door hops.
Door hops. That's sad. And the bellhops, yeah, they're actually motorized trolleys. They have like a hall of robots, like a.
I would definitely want to stay there. Yeah.
So it's like one of those automats where they serve food, except it takes
Right.
stuff away from you.
Yeah. And if you want to get food there, that's all they have available. Is you go to those automat.
But mostly you
things.
put your bags into the automat and then take food out. And it takes your
Right, yeah,
bags
they have like a luggage storage system where it's actually like it's like a uranium.
So like your
arm
luggage
thing
goes
that
through the
grabs it and
airport
pulls
luggage
it
system
out.
twice on a
Shoves it
trip
over
instead
there.
of just once.
Right, yeah. And
awesome.
A large portion of your stay at the weird hotel that I seem to gather is watching your luggage. Because the trolley for the bellhop moves at like about a half a mile an hour, and then the arm taking your luggage in and out is very laborious.
I just had an idea that probably would make somebody a lot of money. Is a Bluetooth connected suitcase robot that you have like it's connected to your phone and it's like programmed with eyes to be able to navigate people really perfectly. And
Right.
you just walk and it follows you everywhere you go through the airport.
Like a dog.
Yeah.
Like a dog. Program
Dog.
Bluetooth to your phone and
Here,
it's called
Gucci, come here, Gucci.
Doggy Bag. Doggy Bag.
Doggy bag.
Yes.
Brilliant.
$1 million idea, Silicon Valley. I want my cut.
Right.
Patent, that's
That
copyright.
tape. That's worth $1 right now.
Yeah, I know. That's gold in that machine right
Yeah.
Prototype, you can just reprogram a Roomba. It wouldn't
Nice.
it
Yeah.
wouldn't carry enough weight.
Just
You know,
duct tape to a Roomba, you got yourself a doggy bag.
DJ Roomba, no thank you. Bellhop Roomba.
I think Terry Pratchett has some prior art on that.
What are all the door hops going to do though in the future when there's robots replacing it? But that's the big thing with the robot deal is like, what the hell are we? I think we're going to need robots to get rid of all the redundant people, right? Because
Right.
we're not
To
going
kill them?
Yeah, well, that's not how the corporation's going to put it. But thank you.
Okay, so there's another question I wanted to. Oh, did you have a question you want to ask him?
Well, yeah,
Sure.
I had an idea in mind. If you were going to be able to live in a real live action remake of Weird Science and just like conjure up your own
Oh, yeah.
female.
So if we did a
Back to sex bots.
if we recreated your own
Only if
perfect
you're in
woman.
sex.
What
From-
ingredients would you choose? What would
Oh,
be the
okay.
characteristics
So,
you
like in the
wanted?
movie Weird Science, they grabbed a bra and a centerfold from a magazine, and what were some of the other components that went in it? You guys remember?
I didn't see it, sorry.
And the main thing was the centerfold because at some point another magazine fell over and they created like a nuke missile, like an ICB missile, because that happened to be on it.
Yeah,
so-
they accident. Yeah, it was time. It was-
right.
I think I would just go with the same stuff because Kelly LeBrock's not working right now anyways.
Right.
Get her for the project.
Sure.
Yeah, we'd all just rock a LeBrock. That's what I would do.
Yeah, rock the LeBron.
Why not? You
Why
know,
wouldn't
it's
you?
like,
Why wouldn't you?
she's pretty great.
Yeah.
Seems like a.
So, Rob, start.
Hi,
Hi.
you can call me Joe.
What's
Or
up,
John.
John?
John, of course.
Yeah. Because everybody's calling him the wrong character.
I would just
got
go
that right.
full blown fantasy. I would just create if I made a person, I would make a amazing just fantasy character.
Nice,
Go
yeah.
full blown, you know.
Yeah, if I was gonna like make a
I-
robot to have sex with, I would want to be like give me
This
like
isn't
a
a
Navi.
she's not a
from-
robot though, is she? Is she a robot or she's like a?
She's AI.
She's like
of
a
some
supernatural.
kind. Yeah, she's before we understood what that type of world would actually be. We were like, I don't know, computers, and then we could bone it. Like,
And
it's
then-
all like
and then-
Are you saying that
like-
John Hughes didn't really know a lot
I
about
think
science?
that might be the case. I think that
Yeah,
might
but-
actually be the case.
A lot of hard science behind the movie.
Yeah.
Weird Science.
Yeah,
A
yeah.
lot,
It is hard science.
a lot of technical support.
Okay, so I thought this was interesting. This country may be protecting us from an uprising from androids with its 2012 Robots Ethics Charter, but may also invoke the revolution by implementing the world's first robot tax. Was that country Canada, China, Switzerland, or South Korea? So in 2012, they made a charter of like the ethical things you're allowed to do with your robot. The devices that they didn't even have created yet in 2012. They were like, we're laying down rules for things that aren't even really made yet. And then 5 years later, they're like, okay, these things that we finally now actually are starting to roll out,
China?
we're going to tax them.
It feels like China.
It does feel like
I'm going to hunch South Korea. I have no reason to think it, but I'm hunching that.
It is South Korea. Yeah, they are weird. They're a weird group. They're looking towards the future, though, in South Korea.
Yeah.
It's definitely interesting.
I think it's good to think about these things now. It's visionary.
Yeah,
Well, I think South Korea is looking at China, so we're both right.
Yeah, they're both
Did
right.
they ban the sex bots in their ethical charter?
You know, I didn't know all the specifics of it, but there was surprisingly little to do with sex specific. They had lots of like.
It's a pretty conservative country.
It was mainly about the protection from the people of having their jobs taken away from them by the robots. But there was
protection from robots, not protection of robots.
But there was very limited but specific worded rules about the treatment of the robots. So you couldn't create a robot specifically to suffer.
You can't beat it with a stick thicker than your thumb.
Right.
Yeah.
I don't know the exact of the ruling, other than the fact that those rulings were made. Yeah.
Is there can a computer ever have inspiration or an AI? That's
Or it'd have to just be a facsimile of it.
Yeah.
Like be apparent. You guys.
Yeah, I think to me the thing that's different between a machine, AI, and humans is the group consciousness of where you are in the pecking order and the aspiration to move higher up the pecking order.
But robots could be.
They can be programmed to do that.
I think that's mostly men, though.
Well, women have different ways of expressing it, but it's inherent. It's why you can train a dog but not a cat, because a cat lives by a solitary life. So
dogs, they have a
it's not
pecking
programmed
order.
to learn more programming, but social animals.
Well, I think there's an argument that the cats have programmed us. They've learned that if if you ever see cats interact with each other, they don't meow at each other.
We're talking about
it's a
inspiration.
simulated baby noise.
We're talking about inspiration being the signifier of this, right? But there are 7 billion people on the planet. Your inspiration, let's be honest, we're thinking about those were the good ideas that 7 billion people had.
Right.
Here's how you'll know a robot's a person, is when it has a shitty idea and it insists it's a fucking great idea. That's a fucking person.
Because it wants to move its status.
That's the hungriness. Yeah.
Is that to go back to your joke about in South Korea they're building machines to animate cells.
Right.
That machine gets built and it is just a tool to help a person animate cells.
Right.
But once that machine starts writing its own episodes of Rick and Morty, that's when we're all done. When we need to find a way off the rock here. We need a dumber rock to live on.
So, talking to inspiration, I will assume for a moment the role of robotic advocate.
Okay.
And I will say to you, what you call inspiration, I call conclusion. That's a humanistic term. You're very proud of yourself.
Conclusion.
I call it a random number generator.
It's a logical place to end up. You call it an inspiration because I'm not quite sure. I guess you're proud of yourself.
No, but to me, what seems like inspiration is exactly the thing that is not the natural conclusion. I think your idea of a random number generator, if I wanted to approximate inspiration, I would just, program every now and then, just put in a completely outlandish thing that has some vague connection between 3 or more elements.
Like deliberately makes like a couple, 5,
Right,
6
that breaks
links of
some of
logic.
your rules. Well, that
Right.
breaks several of your rules and has some other kind of connection.
Right. Yeah. Like deliberate. Like that's how I was first told how I should write a joke. Was that humor is something that leads you to a preconceived notion and then deliberately acts against that by either taking you to the exact opposite of it or taking you to something that's similar but not exactly.
The left turn.
The left turn. So
Yeah.
they call this game the fifth assumption. And you take an idea that you think it's something that's funny, and you just think there's something inherently funny about that. Like I wanted to take swim trunks. You wear mesh netting underwear, it's extremely uncomfortable, yet it still seems to be the most prevalent underwear option for swim trunks. Why do we do that, right? I thought that's inherently funny. So I went down the line of the fifth assumption. So I was like, okay, underwear, netting, what gets trapped in netting, dolphins get trapped in netting, and then the joke pretty much writes itself right there. You know, you're outside of a Dick's Sporting Goods protest, like, free my balls, you know? And of course that was like a very sophomoric joke, and you were able to get through there really fast. But I think that's like that would be a leap of logic that maybe somebody who's programming an AI to write a joke might have to make.
I think an AI could write a better joke.
Oh yeah, sure. I don't do that joke anymore.
You know, that brings up an interesting point to me anyway, is palindromes. One thing computers have not been able to do is to write any kind of decent palindrome with a single exception. And that is a type of palindrome that has a very narrow paradigm. And I'm talking about the famous a man, a plan, a canal, Panama. A guy named Dan Hoey, who's a Navy programmer, wrote a program that extended that, but all you do is plug in nouns. So it was just like a man, a plan, a cat, a tar, a bag, a car, a dag, you know. You can go through all the nouns in the dictionary and see which one's reversed with an extra A so that you have the article or an, you know. And he did. He came up with a thing with like 800 words, you know. And of course it's no fun to read. It's an interesting programming exercise. But with that exception, and I think that's the exception that tells the rule, palindromes generally are on the knife's edge of sense anyway, and them being kind of shitty is part of what makes them funny. And that's exactly the kind of thing that no computer has ever been able to figure out how to do.
Okay, I remember the palindrome, so I gotta say it before I forget.
Speaking of shitty palindromes.
Speaking of shitty palindromes, mood deifier emit lifetime reified doom.
Wow.
That was the palindrome I wrote. And that was taking words that are lining them all up together. Yeah, I like that.
Like radar, kayak, radar was my first on a similar.
Right. You just I just followed out one way and then followed back together. It was fun. Yeah, but I like how you were saying that, like, creating a palindrome flexes the same mental muscles and is about as difficult as filling out an entire crossword puzzle.
Yeah.
But filling out an entire crossword puzzle, you're doing the same experiential thing that like 10,000 people have done, and you're not doing anything new or creative. But with that amount of effort, you could create an entirely new palindrome.
Exactly.
And I filled out a few crossword puzzles. I don't remember them at all, and obviously I'm not the best example because it took me a little while to remember it tonight. But like that palindrome, I wrote like 4 years ago, and it's still with me. So it's
and no one
funny.
else has ever written that. Just a quick plug. If you're interested in writing palindromes, check out my magazine, The Palindromist, at palindromist.org, where we have articles like the 7 useless skills of the palindromist that breaks down
I think
how
this
to
is
do it.
the perfect transition. Big round of applause for Mark Salfight, ladies and gentlemen. Check out The Palindromist. We also want a big round of applause for Jason Traeger.
And check me out at Traeger Method on Instagram, Twitter, Traeger Method. Thank you very much.
Artist and comedian Jason Traeger.
Check it out.
On Instagram. Keep it going for Seth Milstein, ladies and gentlemen.
Twitter's and Instagram, both are Seth Mills.
Good. All right, and Christopher Boatwright. Big round of applause for Christopher.
Thank you very much. You can find me at the Neighborhood House Food Bank, usually Thursdays. They've got meat there. It's really good. I look forward to seeing you guys there.
Meat at the food bank is really the. I love the food bank on Hawthorne because then you're gonna get like cow meat product, and then you're gonna get like gourmet like prosciutto ham or something like that.
I got duck liver pate, and it said on the thing, this duck liver was vegetarian fed, which is exactly what I want to know, is that my food's got better karma than I do.
Right, exactly. All right, yeah. Why don't we get up on food boxes? That's because we're comedians. That's why. All right. Well, we do this show every week or every other week, and next theme we're gonna do a role-playing game. It's going to be pretty exciting. We're going to do Dragons and Dum-Dums, an original role-playing game created by Shane Hosa.
On Traeger Quest!
Oh, it's going to be pretty exciting. Come check it out, and we're going to have some panels for that, and that should be fun. Thanks for tuning in, guys. Yeah. Oh, big round of applause for Big Town Hero, who sponsored Submarine Signatures for us.
Yeah.
Thanks, Big Town. Bye, everybody at home. Okay, now I can go back to our panel. Sorry.
Ellen,
what did you want to say?